So this is the Khoodeelaar television channel, broadcasting under the banner of Baby Angel Geronimo editions. These editions are continuing the updates, contextual updates for the manifesto. Baby Angel Geronimo Manifesto for Animals and Society. Now, one of the things that the self-promoting editor of Private Lie, Ian Pissoff, has been doing in the last fortnight, let's say, has been to peddle himself as a champion of the campaigners, for the victims of the post office Fujitsu Horizon computer criminality. But looking at the contents of Private Lie, the section that is called on the back or in the back, let me just check what the actual words are. In the back or on the back, I have to get that absolutely as they are writing it. It's in the back. So in the back section of Private Lie, often is supposedly investigative pieces and mainly summaries of some cases in the courts or related to the court proceedings. But what this, whoever writes this or whoever write these do is to use a style that is secretive and in itself reminiscent of a Freemason type secretive kind of exchange among insiders. It doesn't share the ordinary public knowledge or perceptions or the styles. For example, the proceedings about over the ownership and proprietorship of the Barclay family, Barclay that owned the Daily Telegraph, has been so obscure that even it would be impossible for even the Barclays to understand what the fuck the Private Lie is talking about. And the latest obscurity that I have noticed is on page 40 of this current edition, which is headed Teesside Freeport Update. It's so completely fucking stupid that it would be impossible for anyone, even in Teesside, who is not connected with these people that are featured, to understand what talk about millions and the power of the company, etc., being abused, etc. But that's it. There is nothing that suggests that in Teesside, there are communities in Teesside. There is no connection with the council. There is no connection with the members of parliament. There is no connection with or reference to the councillors. And there is no comparison. There is no comparison between the people of Teesside allegedly affected by this Teesside Freeport adventure and Rishi Sunak, because the first paragraph in had a, didn't they do well? It reads as follows. Stellar financial results. What the fuck, stellar? Fuck off. From the company by which a couple of local businessmen are extracting vast sums from the regeneration project at the heart of Rishi Sunak's flagship Freeport, confirmed the many hugely lucrative transactions the eye has exposed over the last year. Now, this is the kind of boast claim has only kind of followed private life, but that's not true. Whereas the judgment, the ruling, the particular ruling is understandable to a great extent. Whatever private lie has been publishing and printing about the scandal over the years, which is factually true, that they have been publishing stuff, is not understandable. And this is probably a secret that is intentionally provided so that the ordinary public don't understand how the law is broken, how the corruption is dominated. And the concept of corruption is not there. The idea that this is all corrupt, it is not spelled out as corrupt. The same applies to the thing called the Rotten Boroughs column. There is nothing in the Rotten Boroughs column where references are made to some councils. There is absolutely nothing to do with the local people whatsoever. So it is a distorted, perverted Jan Pissoff and Francis Swine insulting people and taking advantage of the fact that the rest of Lee Street is corrupt. So there is no actual analysis of private lies obscurity in any of the Fleet Street dailies. So we shall be continuing about the private lies, idiotic, obscure investigative journalism. There is a character or two connected with also the Communist Party of Great Britain that have got part-time contributions to the private lie pieces. Exactly the same way. But when the Communist Party Morning Star publishes some of the stuff that are also published by private lie, the Morning Star version compared to the private lie, Morning Star version compared to private lie, not compared to anything else, appears to be almost understandable. Now, in the process of the private lies, the judiciary, it doesn't really explain the various breaches of the law, the various laws, various rules, various kind of procedure rules like the civil procedure rules, CPR, etc., the criminal procedure rules. And there is no contextual look at the judiciary, and there is no look at the jurisprudence. The absence of a transparent judicial system. That is what the British judicial system is, judiciary is. Going back to David Neuberger, who was the first president of the so-called British Supreme Court, under the premiership of Theresa May by her de facto deputy, who actually got Neuberger to brag that once Brexit was done, London would become the center of the world's litigation. What he was suggesting was that London would become the legal, in terms of judicial litigation, the prostitute, the brothel for the world's most corrupt crooks to come and fight it out. But when it actually comes to the private lie, reporting any of those things, it is obscure and obscure and obscure and dark and dark and dark. It's not enlightening at all. So it doesn't actually inspire anyone to relate A to B to C to D. How the corruption in the courts, through the courts, by the courts actually affects and engenders additional corruption. Engenders meaning creates, encourages further corruption in the rest of society, in parliament, in the government, in the department. For example, the most corrupt department in the context of the Baby Angel Geronimo editions, DEFRA. So we shall be continuing this in due course, of course, by referring to other aspects of the private lie obscurity, journalism of obscurity. It's like and all these things on the cover of this current edition, Post Office Robbery, is so bloody obvious. Post Office Robbery, but it doesn't really tell the story about the post office as it is. It's absolutely obscure. The piece about Emily Sheffield, who was editor of the Evening Standard following Osborne's reign, is also obscure. It reads very much like a whispering, gossipy kind of thing for the insiders. It doesn't talk expressly, transparently at all about the corruption involved in Emily Sheffield's role, in George Osborne's role, in the role of the son of KGB spy who owns the Evening Standard, London Evening, No Standard Standard. All of the private lie pieces are whispery, whispery. And this is perhaps also explained by the fact that when the huge sum of defamation payments made to the wife of the Yorkshire Ripper, Ian Pissoff stood outside the Royal Courts of Justice and said he was a banana, etc., etc. This banana has been following an editorial tactic which says that you obscure the whole thing so that there is no suggestion that you are actually attacking a crook at all. That is the way that the liar Ian Pissoff is succeeding in avoiding being sued. Because when the previous editorial regime in Private Eye was fronted by Richard Ingrams, who stupidly appointed Pissoff as his successor, there were almost every issue of Private Lie had been associated with lots and lots and lots of defamation threats and actions. Since the period in the 1980s when Ian Pissoff was given the post by Richard Ingram stupidly, the Private Lie has been increasingly kind of relying on the alleged absence of litigation, which perhaps is another thing that Pissoff wrongly boasts about, that he is running at the same time an investigative journal which is also complying with a standard of journalistic ethics that avoids being litigated as frequently as the magazine used to be when Richard Ingrams was editor. When Richard Ingrams was editor, for example, the style in the paper, the section that named politicos, was distinctly different. Distinctly different in the sense that instead of hiding behind various phrases of obscurity, the Ingrams edited Private Lie used to name the guilty individuals, the criminals, like Ken Livingston Livingstone, when he was the coup leader and leader of the GLC as a result, was named. Private Lie would often run stories about Ken Livingston Livingstone and his greater London corruption. Private Lie doesn't do that. Private Lie has got more information about Croydon corruption. It has got more information about Tower Hamlets Council and Lutheraman corruption. And it has got more information about the corruption by Roxana Fiaz in Newham. But it doesn't publish any of this. It doesn't publish any of this information at all. So Pissoff can go into the studios of various other broadcasting outlets and come across as if he is the one who is most aggrieved and outraged by the corruption of the post office scandal. Nothing could be further from the truth, because the Post office scandal has been only brought out into the open by the fact that the main issues were compressed into the four-part dramatization done by the ITV, and it has reached millions of people who have viewed it. And when millions of people have viewed it, it has produced the kind of response that only in the 1960s, the Kathy Come Home documentary had produced, a documentary, fact-based kind of play, Kathy Come Home. But what happened to Kathy Come Home? After the years of outrage about homelessness and lack of housing, etc., housing and homelessness crisis continued. And it is no longer the front page news that, say, for example, currently in the last few weeks, the post office scandal has been. Yet, more people are affected by homelessness, more people are affected by the corruption by local councils that create homelessness. But there is no sign of that being reported by Private Lie, Ian Pissoff, or by even The Guardian. So we should be ending this particular edition here at 6:42 hours GMT on Sunday, 21st of January 2024. And we shall take a look at some of the papers and Fleet Street papers and start reviewing, diagnosing those in part B within the next 3 hours.